following program is exclusively produced and distributed by Dick Dinman's Double D Productions, Inc., all rights reserved. Hi, Golden Age film fanatics, and welcome to DVD Classics Corner on the Air. My name is Dick Dinman, and our goal is to become your exclusive guide to the very best of the Golden Age classics coming out on DVD. We'll have reviews, breaking news of upcoming releases, plenty of surprise guests, and a special feature devoted to the great Golden Age film composers, which we call Cinemusic. So let's turn on the marquee and lights, camera, action. It's time for Dick's Picks, in which I get to shine the spotlight on one of my Dick's Picks of the week. It seems to me that with each succeeding month, our friends at the Warner Archive keep trying to top themselves. And certainly this month is no exception. Just listen to this month's Blu-ray Masterworks. Robert Mitchum tangles with murderous seductress Gene Simmons in Otto Preminger's Angel Face. Oscar-nominated Eleanor Parker in the stark women's prison exposé Caged. The iconic Joan Crawford takes on all comers in The Damned Don't Cry. Esther Williams' Technicolor delight, Dangerous When Wet. Joan Collins practically bursting out of her minimal costumes in Howard Hawks' spectacular The Land of the Pharaohs. Spencer Tracy's Oscar-nominated performance in John Sturges' The Old Man and the Sea. Greta Garbo at her greatest in Queen Christina. And last but certainly not least, Stewart Granger and Deborah Carr brave the many dangers of unexplored darkest Africa in MGM's Technicolor classic King Solomon's Mines, which has been painstakingly restored from the original negatives, leading to one of the most incredible restorations that you will ever witness. These great Blu-ray classics are now yours to behold and savor as never before, courtesy of the Warner Archive, even as we speak. Stay tuned for more Dick's Picks, coming up on DVD Classics Corner on the Air very soon. In honor of the Warner Archive's incredible restoration of King Solomon's Mines, I've culled specific selections of my original 3.5-hour chat with star Stewart Granger as he candidly speaks not only of his not always pleasant experiences filming King Solomon's Mines, and also talks about the filming of one of his other great hits, the swashbuckling classic Scaramouche.
You see, Solomon's Mines, when I made Solomon's Mines, I remember the director, whose name I can't remember.
This is what I wanted to ask you. This is strange because two directors are credited, Compton Bennett
Yes, Compton Bennett.
and Andrew Martin.
Well, the point was, I arrived in America under contract to do Solomon's Mines, and I came over to fit, and also to fit for Quo Vadis. I had a 2-picture deal with Metro.
You were set to do Quo Vadis?
I did a test with John Huston with little Liz Taylor. And I arrive, and I'm doing the fittings for Solomon's Mines.
Right.
And I meet Sam. He's a darling man. We loved each other immediately. And he said, "Oh, you must know Compton Bennett." Now that was the death knell to me. I didn't know that Compton Bennett, because I happen to know that James Mason, who made Seventh Veil, with Sidney Box, who's the producer.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to make Seventh Veil, and James wanted to direct it. He couldn't because he was not a member of the union. So Sidney Box organized to get a guy who was a cutter, actually, but he also was a member of the union, to come and direct it, to take orders. And they got a fellow called Compton Bennett. They said to Compton Bennett, now we will tell you where to put the camera, when to cut, over shoulder, every morning. So they did it, and it was a smash hit. It was the big smash hit in America, Seventh Veil.
Yes.
So Americans, being what they are, immediately they saw who did it. They didn't say, did he do it? How much did he do? They gave him a contract. He made 2 films at Paramount, both disasters. He made 1 film at Metro, which was not a disaster because of that cast. He had Errol Flynn,
Forsyth,
Greer
woman.
Garson,
Right.
Walter Pitt,
Right.
but it still was not as good as it should have been. And he says to me, we've got Compton Bennett. Now my heart drops, and I said, where is he? And he said, he's in Africa now. I thought, oh my God, I can't say check on him, he's no good. So I said, oh well, all right, I let it go. Okay, I arrive in London. Compton Bennett is back from London. He comes in, I invite him round for drinks to my apartment, and I want to show him a film that Sam has sent over about Africa to him. And he comes in, do you know what he said to me?
No.
He said, I want you to know here and now that I wanted Errol Flynn. Now, I don't think he's an idiot for wanting Errol Flynn, but he's an idiot to tell me he wanted Errol Flynn, so we started off on the wrong side. Okay, now, he never opened his mouth during the whole film. He read the script. Now, the script was written by 2 people who'd never been to Africa, so if it said in the woods, he would look for some woods. Now, we happened to be in a place that was gorgeous, with one place called Buffalo Springs. It was a spring right out in this desert with wonderful palm trees up there, and oh, it's so good. He said, no, he says, it says here woods. So we start looking for woods. It could be shot in Mulholland Drive,
He took it that literally.
Oh, yes, he was awful. Everybody couldn't stand him. And Bob Surtees, the darling cameraman, anyway, I loathe the son of a bitch, and I didn't get on with him at all, and I didn't know about hunting, and Deborah was great, she was a real
Pro.
I've never taken a woman on safari with me before.
Have I been a handicap?
I know, Mrs. Curtis, but the fun hasn't started yet.
When it does, I'm sure we'll all enjoy it.
Because we went through hell. We suffered from... Oh, there was one occasion when the men are getting so exhausted, and they're so fed up. It's our 4th month in Africa. We've got tsetse bites, and we've got mosquito bites, and malaria, and we've got dysentery. And suddenly there's a case of amoebic dysentery. Now, if you've got amoebic dysentery, that's dangerous. Now, the men who have amoebic dysentery, they leave them in the hospital, you see. But they're all hoping that I've got it, because I've started to get dysentery. So they think if Jim gets dysentery, amoebic dysentery, we all go home, because he's the leading man. So I go to this hospital, and this doctor comes out. And the men are with me. They've sort of taken me there to make sure that I don't sneak out the back. And they put you on a table, and you kneel over in a rather embarrassing position, and they take this long glass tube, and they stick it in a place that's very, very uncomfortable,
Yes.
and have a look at your intestine, you see. And all the men are looking around hopefully while I've got this, I'm in a very unromantic position. And the fellow says, he said, you've got the cleanest colon I've seen in a long time. And the men look at me as much to say, well, Jim, you haven't got it. Cry. So I'd let them down. Anyway, we go on for a long time. And I didn't know, but Compton Bennett, who is failing many times, he doesn't know what to do. He's not sure where to put the camera, and he's scared of animals. And I had this wonderful thing of this rhino. There's the rhino right there at the back. Can you see it? Back there, that enormous rhino head.
Oh, yes.
In the film, they have a rhino that walks, and everybody stops. A rhino! It's going to attack us, And this little old thing walked by with a 2-inch horn, and I meet a guy called Carl Hartley who knows I'm a really absolute dedicated hunter. I wanted to hunt. And he takes me out to the Rift Valley. He said, I've been keeping a rhino for somebody I think is worthy of it. And he said, Jim, I like you. You're a good guy. Bless his heart. And here's this enormous rhino, this enormous, gigantic rhino, right out in the middle of the Rift Valley in the middle of the day. Usually they go up into the bush, And he said, look, you want to see it? And he took a empty cartridge case, and he whistled down it, and the Rhino picked up his ears and looked, and started looking around with their very short eyes. He said, do you want me to make it charge? And I said, why? He said, because I can make it charge. I sway and it'll charge. I said, wait a minute, just leave it. Come back. And so we sneaked away. I said, listen, I've got a 5.77. I'm a pretty good shot. I hear there's a thing called the matador shot. That the Rhino, when it puts its head down to hook you, you shoot it right between the shoulders and it rolls over. There was a man called J.A. Hunters, one of the most famous hunters, staying with Carr Hartley. Carr Hartley is an animal catcher and a hunter. I said, look, the three of you, all of us together, that Rhino ain't going to get me, is it? Because you can thump it. If I miss it, you thump it. I said, let's get a cameraman with a handheld camera. I will stand in front. You see the Rhino. We have a long shot of the Rhino. You call it. The Rhino will look up. This is all in one shot. It'll start coming. As it starts to attack, I will move forward into shot. Now you've got me in foreground, the Rhino in the distance. As it comes, it puts down. I'll thump it with my gun. Boom! If I miss, darlings, you hit it. And then I turn to the camera, walk out of shot. Now we go and get Deborah. We now shoot in the opposite direction of Deborah coming and me coming, and I say stop. I move out of camera there. I then get reactions on Deborah. Oh, it charges. Boom! I kill it. It'll be the most exciting shot in the world. He gets so in. He said, wonderful. We go back. We turn this to the director. I said, this will be the shot like in Trader Horn. There was the time when the lion attacked and they put a spear in its head. Do you remember? Mm-hmm. I said, people are going to talk about this shot, and I've got the guts to do it. I'll do it. And he sort of says, yes, it's interesting. Yes, that's the. And I go to Bob Surtees. I said, Bob, will you give me the camera operator? And the camera operator is a buddy of mine. I said, will you do that? Have you got confidence? He said, yes, Jim, if the other two are there too. I said, all right, I know. But, so Hunter said he'd come, Carr Hartley. We had it all organized. Go to bed, excited, get up next morning. Compton Bennett, with a smug look on his face, the son of a gun, comes in with a telegram. Says, Jimmy, read that. The telegram says, Stewart Granger on no condition must be allowed to be near any wild game, to shoot any wild game, to jeopardize the success of this film by risking his life, etc., etc., etc. This son of a bitch had telegraphed back to the office and said, Granger, it wasn't risking my life. Yes, I had to have some guts to do it, but I had two of the greatest hunters in the world on either side of me, out of camera, with two cannons. I mean, 5.77 is an enormous gun. He stopped me. So, I was furious, upset. So anyway, the next morning, Carr Hartley and I went out to the valley, and there it was, waiting for us. And he does what he said he would do. He calls it up. And everything happened the way he said it would. It charged. I didn't wait for the matador shot. I wasn't going to risk my life for nothing, and I didn't have two men backing me up, but I killed it clean. The fact of killing a rhino, I know, shocks you now because they're a rare and wonderful animal, but in those days, it was no big deal to shoot a rhino. And it is a most magnificent head, and Hunter, who'd killed 2,000, said it's the best he'd ever seen. I mean, this in the film would have been wonderful. So anyway, we take the head and we bring it back and we say, well, that's what you should have had in the film. And from then on, as far as I was concerned, I just did what he asked me to do with the best of my ability, and that was it. Now when we came home, and I didn't know that he'd been writing to Sam Zimbalist and Louis B. Mayer saying that Deborah Carr's husband, Tony Bartlett, and I were so impossible that he was finding it very difficult. He's putting all the blame of anything that might go wrong onto us. We didn't know this. Now we get back, and I take a couple of days to recover from all the, because it was a tough film. And I go into the studio. They say, will you go and have a meeting with Sam Zimbalist? And I walk in the gates, through the gates, and the car is coming up, and there's a very pale, frozen-faced man behind the wheel, which is this fellow, the director. What's his name?
Compton
Bennett. See, I just like him so much, I've wiped his name out of my mind. Anyway, Compton Bennett is driving out, and I wave to him, because I don't like the son of a gun, but I'm not going to cut him. So I wave, and there's a kind of a dazed look on his face, and he looks at me and gives a kind of a sickly smile, and he drives out. So I go up to Sam's office. Hello, Sam, we're great buddies. what's the matter with our director? He looks as if he's, had a death sentence. And he said, well, he has. He's been fired. He's been fired, I said. Wonderful! Why did you get so bright as to fire this?
Yes,
Well,
what?
He said, well, I tell you what happened. You didn't know, but he'd been writing letters complaining about you the whole time, and Louis B. Mayer was very worried because you were our new hope. We want you to do Quo Vadis and maybe sign a contract, and we want to find out if you are a son of a gun or not. He didn't say gun. However, he said what happened was Louis B. Mayer very cleverly sent for Bob Surtees. He said, Bob, you are an MGM man. Deborah Carr is not an MGM woman. Stewart Granger's new boy, and the others are just employees, but you've been here for 20 years. Tell me, what happened? He said, I'll tell you. Without Granger, you wouldn't have a film. He said, what do you mean? He said, that guy and Deborah, they kept the crew going. We did things for the crew to make them laugh because they really were getting demoralized. They had dysentery. There was one time we were down to 10 people from 60. Deborah and I were carrying things up, helping with the lamps. He said, that's all I wanted to know. I had a suspicion. He called, he said, you're fired. Get off the lot. Now we're in the office of Sam Zimbalist, and Bundy Martin is in the office because he's done some wonderful work on second unit. So now Sam says, now, Jim, and Deborah's there, what are we going to do about a director? I look at Sam and I say, Sam. He said, what are we going to do about a director? I said, Sam, I got to talk to you alone. Bundy, do you mind if I talk to Sam alone for a minute? And Bundy goes out. And Deborah's with me. I said, Sam, you can't do that to him. He's got to direct the film. He said, but he's never directed the film. I said, it doesn't matter. He's a second unit director. He risked his life for you. He's got the most wonderful shots in this film, on Mount Kenya and everything.
Oh, so he was there for the whole...
Oh, yes, he was there the whole time with us. He was the second unit director.
Right.
I mean, I'll show you the film and I'll pick out where it was him, was my double, which incidentally has been used in about 20 other films about Africa. But that's how Bundy Martin, and from that I inherited Bundy Martin in two films, Green Fire and also The Wild North.
That's right.
That's
right.
Which was a pretty good film, actually. Wild North was better than Green Fire.
We pause now for station identification.
DVD Classics Corner on the Air is exclusively produced and released by Dick Dinman's Double D Productions, Inc. All rights reserved.
Is Scaramouche now? Have you looked at
it? Scaramouche, yes.
Well, what I'm... You said you didn't like it. How do you feel about it today?
Well, I see it now. Oh, that's the funny thing. When I arrived here from England, I'd quit. You see, when my divorce happened, I left America, and I said, I'm never coming back here because I can't stand a country where it's so easy for a wife to get a divorce. Because in America, she said, I don't like the way he brushed his teeth, you got a divorce. In England, you have to have adultery or you have to have something,
Yes.
And it's so unpleasant that very many people in my day didn't divorce because of that. But here, you just say incompatibility or I don't know, some bullshit. Yeah. And I knew I'd lost my child and everything, because it doesn't matter that you've got visitation rights. You've lost your child, and I did. I lost my child. When she married somebody I couldn't stand. So anyway, I made 2 films with him too. However,
Richard Brooks.
Whoa, you shouldn't have said that. Now everybody will know.
Everybody would know anyway.
Stand Richard Brooks. Well, I can't stand Richard Brooks. So there you are. Very good director, but it's anyway. So I quit America and I left, and I was never coming back. Anyway, it's a long story. I get sick and I have to come back for my health because they took out a lung by mistake. They thought I had cancer and I didn't. I had tuberculosis.
Right.
They didn't have to operate, and I could have been cured with drugs. It's a long, miserable story. But I'm much better now, although you, dear public, will realize that this is not the same voice that you heard on Scaramouche, because this lung thing and this emphysema that I've got has changed my voice entirely. So that the reason I came back here was really for my health. Otherwise, I never would have come back and acted again. But it was I couldn't stand
So you got to a point where you really didn't enjoy acting.
I never did.
You never liked it?
No, I never liked film acting. I loved stage acting. I was a stage actor. I was a very good stage actor. In the Old Vic Theatre, I played restoration comedy, Shavian, show. And I loved the theatre, but to me, to be pushed around by a director and made to play a scene, and then the camera moves in on a close-up, and then when you see the film, they put the different close-up in a different place, and you've got no control of yourself at all.
Never gave you any satisfaction?
And very little, except, for instance, I saw Scaramouche. Oh, I was telling you, when I came back, I went on television because I'd written a book,
yes.
My autobiography.
Yes.
And I went on television. There was a man waiting in the green room called Jay Walpert, who was a dear friend of mine. He was just kind of a producer. He produces game shows and things, but he's an important guy. Nervously comes up to me with a copy of Scaramouche in his hand, the book of Scaramouche, the original,
right.
the first edition. He gives it to me, and he's shaking, and I just want to tell you that I'm a fan of yours. And he said, I think that Scaramouche is a classic film, and I have a copy of it, and every 3 months I show it, and I invite a lot of guests, and we give a discussion about, would you come? And I said, oh, I'd love to. I wouldn't love to at all. I thought I'll go there, and there'll be a lot of 70-year-old people looking at Scaramouche. And then I go on the show, and very nervous because I'd come back to Hollywood after 20 years, and you're a terrible country, you see, in America. You forget people so soon. In Europe, I haven't made a film there for years, but I'm still Stewart Granger, that old movie star. But in America, they don't know how to spell your name, and they've forgotten you. They're dear people, and they love you when you remind, that Stewart Granger, remember he met, oh yeah, I was in love with you when I was a girl. That goes on, but they don't say right away, hey, you're Stewart Granger, I don't know what it is. So that this man cheered me up a bit to feel that I had a fan. And so anyway, I go. And I go there with my daughter, this Tracy, American daughter. And instead of 70-year-olds, they're 18 to 25. And he shows the film on a 16 millimeter. How he's got a copy, I don't know, but he did. And they love it. They laugh. They applaud. And I get up afterwards and I say, now look, kids, tell me, why did you like this film? They said, oh, Mr. Granger, it's keen, it's neat. You see, neat, keen, I don't know what they're talking about. However, I gather they liked it.
Sure.
They said, because you see, it's romantic, and it's colorful, and it's exciting, and there are no four-letter words, and there's no full frontal. And you see, everything that we think, we're told that the young kids want, they were saying they loved this film because it didn't have it.
That's
You
interesting.
see, that's interesting, isn't
Yes,
it?
it
And
certainly
these
is.
kids, he says, that happens every time. They love this film. So anyway, I started feeling proud because now you ask what I felt about it. Right. In 1952, I hated it because it was not the film I wanted to make. When I saw it again with him, I thought, my God, because I'm looking at a different, you see,
Perspective.
that's this young fellow who's jumping around. He's rather good, isn't he? Because it's not me. I'm 74. I was 7 when I saw it. I was what? I was 69 or 70. This was when I first came over here. So I'm not looking at myself like I was then, thinking I can be better. And I thought, you're pretty good in this, because I want to tell you something. People run down Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn was a great movie star.
Absolutely.
Because if you think, you tell these young fellows today, if you think it's easy to play a swashbuckler, where you've got to be athletic, you've got to look great in costume, you've got to know how to wear costume, how to gesture with costume,
Right.
you've got to be romantic, dramatic, funny, very difficult. These young fellows who are playing young fellas, it's not very difficult.
Right.
You know, Sean Penn or something played this resentful kid in a prison. Well, he's playing it right now, isn't he? He's in prison. And I mean, it's not very difficult. But I tell you, Errol Flynn, to my mind, gave some glorious performances.
Absolutely.
Glorious performances.
He-
And I suddenly thought, Granger, you were damn good in that film because you were funny, you were romantic, You were tender at times with her,
That's
the other
right.
girl.
That's right. With Janet Leigh.
And you were athletic. It's probably the best fight, because Errol and I used to kid each other. He would say, "You got big hips, Jim, haven't you?" Because he had a wonderful body. I had wonderful shoulders and chest, but I had these big hips. I had wide hips. And he had these wonderful slim hips. I said, "Yes, but I fight better than you do in fencing, because you hold the sword up and you don't put, And he said, I said, you give the impression you're a great fighter because you've got such a beautiful body and you move so gracefully. But actually, Basil Rathbone was the good fighter with Errol.
He was supposed to be one of the best, right?
But in this one, I saw it, and I came to a scene which was the most agonized scene. It's the scene where I go and I have this scene with an old man, and I shave him to find out who's my father. And I had a scene with George Sidney. I said, "You've got to cut. I can't remember. There's so much business to do with the shaving and the soap and tying you in the chair and all this dialogue, and I've got to go fast. Please, for God's sake, help me. Cut in." He said, "No, Jim, it's great in one shot." I said, "It may be great for you, but you're driving me mad. I'll never remember the lines. I'll remember the razor and the stropping the razor and putting the stuff in the soap and on his face and then swiveling him around and tying him. I'll never do it." But I did it.
And how?
And I saw it. It's the best scene I've ever done.
I agree.
For 30-odd years, I have made a profession of ignorance, with particular reference to my real name, my obscure beginnings, and my mysterious birth. If you fidget, I may draw blood. You're making me nervous. Now, where was I? Ah, yes, my birth. Being adequately financed by whoever was responsible for my arrival on what is euphoniously termed the wrong side of the blanket, I was content to be ignorant of my parentage. But now I need money. It is at this moment that my elusive papa concludes that his duty is done and that there shall be no more cakes and ale for his mischievous youth. A lamentable conclusion in any event, but at this particular moment deplorably timed. We must therefore face the fact that the hour has come to tear down the veil and unmask this philandering gentleman. Who is he, Fabian? Who is my father? What is his name, Fabian? The name of my father, what is it?
But isn't that as close to theater acting as you can get on film, in that there are no cuts? You're totally responsible for everything.
Yes, but don't
putting it all
forget,
together.
in the theater, darling, you haven't got a camera 2 feet away from you. And if you do fluff, you can cover it up, but you can't cover up in front of a camera. It goes right into down your adenoids, practically, because...
Yeah.
But in the theater, I've dried up many times, and people haven't known I've dried up. I can cover up for it. And you are not limited. You mustn't go out of scene. You mustn't lean too far to the left. You mustn't lean too far to the right. You've got to hit that in the right place. So it's much harder. But I saw it.
Do you mean in 1952, though, you weren't proud of that scene then? You thought
No.
It's an achievement in any year.
Yes, I thought it was all right, but I was a rebellious character, and it was not the film I wanted to make. I wanted to make the drama with the French Revolution, and I wanted to make people cry in the cinema more than laugh. And I realize now that people want to laugh more than cry.
Yeah.
Well, that's my show for today. DVD Classics Corner on the Air is conceived, written, produced, and directed by me, Double D. And if you'd like to hear some of my older, vintage shows, please go to www.dvdclassicscorner.net, where in addition to the broadcasts, you'll find hundreds of my print reviews of classic DVD releases. So, until next week,
keep well, keep happy, and keep listening.